I am an invisible man. No, I'm not a spook like those who haunted Edgar Allan Poe, nor am I one of your Hollywood movie ectoplasms. I am a man of substance, flesh and bone, fiber and liquids, and I might even be said to possess a mind. I'm invisible, understand, simply because people refuse to see me. I had a rough childhood. It was abusive. Not at home. My parents weren't abusive to me. My abuse was taking place in school. I had a troubling time in my first 3 years of school. My first grade teacher would hit me almost every day. She would pull my hair. I was considered in her eyes a darker skinned kid. And she would pull my hair. She said I had nappy, kinky hair, and she would say, I'm going to pull these nigger naps. And she would pull my hair so hard. It felt like it was coming out of the root sometime, and I would just cry. And I was diagnosed as being hyperactive. So I was taking Ritalin, and that's the only thing they knew to give a child that was hyperactive at that time. So I had to take a pill in the morning and another pill during school hours. And she would embarrass me in front of the class. She would say, Darryl, it's time to take your crazy pill so you'll act right. Kids would laugh, and it would hurt me real bad, and I would cry. And she was just real mean to me. She would make me stand in the back of the line. The slightest little thing I did, she would snatch me up. And then things got worse. I went to the second grade, and my teacher there isolated me from the rest of the class. She just didn't have the patience to deal with me. She put me behind a 6-foot-high cardboard box for half of the year, and she would, I had to eat by myself, I had to sit by myself, play, kids outside during recess. She wouldn't let me play. I had to stand by her in the shade and watch the other kids play, and I would cry every day, go home crying. And I was telling people, I said, and my parents too, I said, the teacher's being mean to me. The teacher's being mean to me. And back in those days, pretty much what the teacher said, it pretty much went, nobody challenged it. And by the grace of God, another kid's parent came and saw what was being done to me and told my mother, and that's when it stopped. I thought things were going to get better the following year when I went to a new school, but it got worse. One day a white kid in my class called me a nigger. And my teacher's aide in that class said, I loved her to death. I thought the world of her. And I ran to her with these tears in my eyes, and I told her the name of the boy, and I said, he called me a nigger. I'd seen roots, so I knew what that word meant. I knew it was negative. And I went to my teacher's aide, and I loved her to death. And I told her, I said, well, he called me a nigger. And she looked at me and she smiled. And she said, well, you should be proud of that. That's who you are. And any childlike innocence I had at that point was just lost. I sat down, I was numb. I wasn't sad anymore, I was angry. And I just cried, but the tears weren't from hurt. It was just the rage that just built up inside of me. And that stayed with me for a long time. Time went on. I still had that anger. I was having problems in school. I got into high school. Sports became an outlet for me. I met a nice girl that I really liked when I was in 10th grade, and I asked her to go to the movies with me, and she said, well, you have to ask my mother because she's not going to let me go unless you ask. So I said, okay, and I went to ask the lady. I said, well, can I take your daughter to the movies? I said, my parents will be driving, we'll be chaperoned, etc., etc. And she was like, well, no, because you're a bad kid and you'll be a bad influence on my daughter, and I don't want my daughter around you. And I never forgot that. It just hurt. It hurt real bad. I mean, it hurt. It was like somebody stabbed me in my stomach. But I dealt with it. I just channeled everything. And time went on. I ended up getting a football scholarship to go to college and an academic scholarship because I was number 3 in my class. And my cousin was my school counselor, and he was walking inside the teacher's lounge, and he overheard some teachers laughing, and they were placing a bet on me as to whether I would flunk out or quit. They were saying I wouldn't make it, And he asked, and at first they wouldn't tell him what's going on, but one of the other teachers who was, was very supportive of me, told my cousin what was happening. And he reached in his pocket and he said, well, I got $200 that says my cousin's going to graduate, and not only is he going to graduate, he's going to do well. I always knew that I was destined to do something in entertainment. I just didn't know what it would be. And throughout my life, I had people always encouraging me to give comedy a try. My sister-in-law, she said, have you ever thought about doing comedy? You're funny. You should give it a shot. I was like, nah, cracking jokes is one thing, but being on stage is different. And I kind of brushed it off, but it always stayed in the back of my mind. Well, 10 years down the road, my life just turned upside down. I was a school teacher, and I was accused by a student of assault, and I was facing 6 years in prison. I lost everything. I lost my family, my job, my home. I was in the street. People turned their backs on me. I was facing 60 years, something I didn't do. And to this day, I still have the paper from the Georgia Department of Corrections, giving me permission to travel out of the state, because I'm so scared that if I ever get stopped, there'll be some computer glitch and I'll end up in prison on a violation. Even though I've satisfied all the conditions the courts put on me, I'm just so afraid of taking that out of my wallet. I still have it. And I moved on. I met a girl, and we developed a great relationship, well, what I thought at the time. And she was pregnant with our child, and she was carrying a girl. And I went out with the members of my motorcycle club, and I was just standing around cracking jokes. And J. Anthony Brown walked up behind me, and he tapped me on the shoulder. He said, well, young man, have you ever done comedy? And I was like, no, sir, I haven't. And he said, well, you should give it a try. You're funny. And he sat me down. We talked for about 20 minutes, and I was so hyped up that somebody of his stature would think I have talent to be a comedian. I said, well, look, maybe I need to look into an open mic. So that following week, I discovered that there was an open mic competition in Atlanta, and I called the local DJ who was the host, and he said, yeah, come on out. If you're funny, I'm going to let you have 3 minutes. If you're funny, you can do 7 next time. So I went out, and things did pretty good for myself, and the 3 minutes turned into 7. I started developing a following. I kept going back. But that first night, my girlfriend's, one of her friends was in the audience and told my girlfriend what I'd done, and she had already threatened me. She said that she was gonna get an abortion and put me out if I went ahead with this pipe dream of mine, as she put it. And she did, and I spent the first 6 months of my comedy career out in the street. I was washing up in gas stations, and I had nowhere to go. I was spending the days in the library just so I could stay cool or stay dry. And here I am, I'm dying inside emotionally. I'm crying myself to sleep every night because I felt the guilt of the blood of my daughters on my hand. And I'm on stage making people laugh, but I'm just catching hell. It was awful. That was the worst experience of my life. And I did comedy for about 2.5 years. And one night I just had to stop. It was September 2008. I saw this vision. I looked at this girl dressed in white in the back of the club, and it was a vision I had. It was my little daughter. And all I could hear her saying was, why did you let mommy kill me? Why didn't you stop her? And every time I tried to respond, it was like blood was coming out of my mouth and blood was on my hands and blood was all over me, and I felt that burden come back on me, and I couldn't handle it, so I just had to stop doing comedy. And I still like to tell jokes, but I just can't do it on stage, and people been trying to get me to go back and do it again, but I just can't right now. But shortly after that, I started acting full time. And I started out being an extra in a few projects around town. People started liking what I was doing, and they called me, and they kept calling me, and I kept working, and I kept auditioning, and finally in 2009, Lottery Ticket was being filmed in Atlanta, and I was extra on that for about a month and a half. And the last week of filming, the director calls me up, Eric Wright, and he says, well, I'm going to give you $100. We want to pull a prank on Bow Wow and Brandon T. Jackson. And I said, okay, what do I have to do? You know, it was Christmas time. I needed the money real bad, and they said, well, we're going to oil you up. You're going to strip down to your underwear. I'm like, huh? And he was like, relax, we got you. And they're going to spray you, make you like you're sweating. And while they're doing the scene, you're going to kick the door in, and you're going to just run in there, and you're going to chase them around the room and just scare them real bad. So they gave me this big old sex toy about this long. So I kicked the door in, and I was supposed to say to Brandon, oh, so now that we're on set, you can't help me. But when you was at my house last night, you promised me you were going to help me with my career. So it was supposed to be a tease on him about, you know, we were supposed to be gay lovers and whatever. But I never got to say any of it, because when Bow Wow saw me, he just immediately started screaming and cursing, and I started chasing him around the room and swinging at him, and I had the door blocked, so they had to come past me to get out. And everybody's laughing. You could hear all the people on the monitors and the executive producers, everybody laughing. So they cut it, and the guy said, well, here's your $100. And I was like, look, you can keep the money. I just give me a speaking part in the movie. I'm trying to be a member of the Screen Actors Guild. And he was like, you know what? Just keep the money, man. We got you. And I was like, yeah, whatever. They ain't gonna keep the word. They're not gonna give me a speaking part. Well, they showed the clip to Ice Cube. He laughed. He said, give me a speaking part. They called me up that night. And the next day, my paperwork was sent to me. I filled it out. The last day of filming, I had my speaking part in the movie, and that's how I became a paid actor who had his first speaking part in a major film. And after that, shortly after that, I packed my bags. I had 3 suitcases. I said, it's time to go to New York and see what I can do. The rest is history. I came here with 3 bags, one-way ticket. And I was determined to make it happen up here. And so far, it's been working for me. New York City. shoot over in Queens. And he said, man, I know a dude that you'd be perfect to work with. And he introduced me. He made the connection. He shot somebody, and then the person he shot, his boys went back and got him. All in that same house. I used to teach in the back of a housing project in Atlanta. They pushed it down, but that boy the school was so big and so many kids from the project went to the school. That was the only school in Atlanta where no buses dropped the kids off. All the kids walked from the housing project and crossed the street, went to the school. Our school had no windows because the drug dealers would be out there all day shooting, and you could hear bullets just hitting the building.
Oh, wow.
First 2 years, I couldn't leave the state. My dad had an aneurysm in 2003, and I snuck away in the night to visit him, and had to do that for a couple months. And then somehow, some way, somebody either told on me or something happened. They violated me, and I had spent some extra time in jail.